Okay, welcome. We'll do the meetup in English. I think there's a couple here that don't speak Norwegian. Is that correct? Yes, so we'll do it in English. Let's see, yeah. So welcome here. Three of us will be presenting today. Maybe, Didier, do you want to sort of welcome and talk a bit about the meetup as well? Yeah?
Yes. So we took the opportunity to SAFe launch a new release of SAFe, the SAFe 6.0, 3 weeks ago. So I became the organizer of SAFe for Oslo 2 months ago, and I say I would like to create more events around SAFe and to explain what is SAFe, how we can use it in a better way, and to share my experience. So I met Roy and Thomas, and then I said, well, let's share our experience, not only mine. And this is the reason that we will speak together. So we joined, 3 of us, to speak about what is 6.0. So we will start with introducing what is SAFe, how you can use SAFe, what is new in 6.0, and then I will speak about the journey I've had in DNB. 7 years of SAFe in DNB would be also relevant, and then you have questions.
Yeah. So welcome here to the IBM Client Center. This is the second SAFe meetup we've had. We do also have other agile stuff, so it's not just SAFe, but I must admit the last few years has been a lot around the scaling framework. So we will, as Didier said, share some experiences, and we will have more meetups in the Oslo meetup group and also the Agile at IBM meetup group. So we will introduce ourselves when we do our presentations. We will have 3 of them, and I think, Thomas, you're the first one. We've got a few participating on WebEx, and I'm also recording it. So we'll see how that goes. Yep. But it's a hybrid meeting here.
Great, thank you. My name is Thomas Woyn. I've been working with SAFe for about 5 years, I think, and have implemented it in a part of the Norwegian Armed Forces. And have also, I'm also doing training through Holt Academy, freelance. So, but I have past the last 20 years been working on different project methodologies, but have grown more and more fond of SAFe as a scaling tool to be able to do lean agile at scale. So I will cover the how should I say, the basics of SAFe, more from a top-down perspective, why they are doing what they're doing and what the principles and the general idea is. So in 6.0 they talk a lot about the acceleration and the time to market using the business agility value stream. And the time to market is not necessarily the marketplace, but it could also be to make some idea into a product or into something valuable. So that it's to shorten the gap it takes from something good pops up to you actually are able to deliver on it. And they use the business agility value stream as a means to kind of explain how you go about doing that. And as Leffingwell says, is the founder of SAFe. And this is, from my perspective anyhow, the core elements of SAFe. It's the mindsets, the values, the principles, and the practices. So these 4 words, concepts, are the very basics and the foundation of SAFe. So everything that SAFe does through the ceremonies, through the events, is based around having a focused mindset, values, principles, and practices. So you will see that throughout. And the mindset is split up in basically 3 parts. You have the lean thinking, which derives from more the Toyota lean practices. Lean, as I guess you guys also know, it's the principles also are based around most of the basic lean elements, pursue perfection as we can see, but also the Agile Manifesto through the Agile values. And for those of you who haven't looked at Agile Manifesto, it's kind of like a weighing tool between, example, responding to change or following a plan. So it doesn't say that you shouldn't follow a plan, but you should lean towards being able to respond to change. Same with customer collaboration over contract negotiation, same thing. Obviously, you need some kind of negotiation over a contract, but you should try to pursue collaboration. So these are some of the mindsets we kind of like go into this with. Same with the core values, the alignment, the transparency, the improvement part, and also the respect for people are also the core values that we should have in the back of our minds when we look at all the ceremonies and the events that SAFe propose. But what I think is at least some of the core concepts to understand with SAFe is the 10 principles. And these could come in a combination. I will take one example. If we look at number 3, assume variability, preserve options. So you should have the ability to maneuver along the way, because you might end up learning something and you need to pivot, right? So one example of that is if you early in the development process chooses a technology or a concept very early on, you don't really have that variability with you along the way. You have chosen, and that's what we call as a point-based design. You have chosen a design that you will have to live with. On the other hand, if you choose a set-based design, you will go with more options, so you can maneuver along the way, right? But then number 1 kicks in, right? Because you can't possibly build all 4 or 5 solutions, because that wouldn't be economically feasible. So they come in tandem, and so one could actually outweigh the other depending on where you are. But those are the core principles. And what they're on about this value stream, the business agility value stream, is basically getting from an idea, a business opportunity, to something has actually happened. And if you can see this waterfall take on doing this, we first have the learning at the very end. That's when we learn if this worked, if it fit the customer need, if we actually were on target, right? And the problem that a lot of companies are facing is the time it takes to do this through these various steps. So it could be like 18 to 24 months. That's way too long to actually just validate that your hypothesis or your idea was right. So this is what we're basically trying to shrink down. And that's where they introduce the business agility value stream. So I will take you through these steps. So what we really try to do is to close the gap between having a bright idea to actually leverage on the opportunity. Down to, instead of 18 to 14 or 24, we go down to typically like 2 to 6. And then we have actually valid learning, right? So I will take you through these. But at the bottom or the foundation for these are the core competencies, right? So everything that SAFe does is basically leaning towards one of these. So this is a lot of practices, principles, and so on that lies within all these 7 areas. So on the top right side, you will have techniques to actually being able to run and manage a lean portfolio. So you will have the agility also on a PMO level, right? When you start and stop and govern projects or investment initiatives, you will have the lean practices. Same with leadership. Leadership needs to perceive and actually go about being managers and leaders in a different way to make this work. So these are the skill set the organization needs to have on board to be able to actually get this value stream to work. So if we start at the first one, the sense of opportunity, that's where you have a learning organization that is how should I say, is connected with the customer. They will have taken the Gemba walk, which is Japanese for where work is done. So you need to know your customers, you need to know their marketplace. So this is the sense part where you need to to really understand what the customer needs, right? And how to go about it. Second, when you look at the skill sets from the lean portfolio management, is instead of now putting or financing big projects, you will instead fund MVPs, minimum viable products, that you will build on if your hypothesis that the MVP is built on is correct. Then you will continue. So you will start off with a skateboard instead of starting off with a car, right? So you will have a working product or working solution that you actually can deliver to a customer, and you can build and evolve if that is the best thing to do with the money, the time, and the people you have in place. So that's how you now fund the MVPs. So that's an early version of the product. Second is how you third is how you organize to create this value. That's how you set aside or put together teams and team of teams, which SAFE call ARTs, Agile Release Trains, to be able to work together towards common business goals and common solutions. So you will set up a team and team of teams that will plan and work together on cadence and also synchronize. So that's also important to be able to get the flow of value through. Then you have the part where you need to really understand the customer, and there SAFE uses techniques such as design thinking to be able to understand the real customer need, and also to empathize with the customer, and to draw a lot from practices from books such as Innovator's Dilemma with what's his name, Clayton Christensen, stuff like that. They put in here to be able to actually understand what the customer needs and not just assume. Then you go over to how you go about delivering the MVP. That's how you actually build the MVP iteratively and incrementally. So you will build small chunks to be able to also to pivot or persevere, and also to stop unsuccessful paths that you might be on. So that's the delivery part. And then you come to the decision where you don't really look at sunk cost, but where you will see if the hypothesis, when you have the product in front of the customer, should you continue investing? Should you pivot, create a new hypothesis to see if that works, or should you just plainly stop? But then you have done that in a very short time span. And also when you have products in place and you are continuing to invest in them, you also need to be able to deliver value continuously. And here's where SIF uses the concept of the continuous delivery pipeline, which is based around DevOps, where you get the agile product delivery cycles to happen. And if they are really big solutions, then you will have a solution train instead of the arts. But they will also utilizing a delivery pipeline to be able to have the agility to get the products or the value to the customer. And then, of course, since we're doing lean also, we have the learn and adapt side, where you will look at how you're doing around these 7 competences, but also you will measure flow, and of course the outcomes. And you need to learn, the goal there is to learn and to do this better and better and better. So you will take the whole process of how the teams are working into your backlog to make sure that you will do it better next time and fix if you have had some issues with, for instance, flow. But probably the most hard part, I think, at least from having implemented this, is the leadership side, to be able to have management think in this manner, to be able to delegate decision rights, to be able to fail, to be able to look at things like sunk cost and be happy about it. So as Deming says, it's not enough to just management commit themselves that sure we will go safe or go lean agile. They must know what they must do. They must know what it is that they must do. They have to walk the walk to be able to get this done. So you can't delegate this to some person in the organization. They need to be on board all the way. They need to have some skin in the game. So 6.0 is focusing very much on the flow side of getting value through, and they have put together these 8 properties, as they call it, to be able to handle and to enable flow you have queues, our queues building, then you will have lag, and you will have, things will get be put out late. You have batch sizes as one metric that you can, how big chunk of work do you plan for. A project is a really big batch. We need to have it much smaller to be able to actually make it flow through the system. So these are steps in the system, right? And they will address bottlenecks and so forth. So these are the properties that I guess one of my colleagues will go through. So 6.0, they have emphasized on the flow side of this. Let's see. And these are the flow accelerators. As I mentioned, work in smaller batches, reduce queues, bottlenecks, and also the visualization part to be able to have this flow mechanism work. Let's see here. But if we look at SAFe, and I guess most of you have some kind of idea what SAFe is. But for those of you who haven't, just try to get, this is a big picture. Just try to explain it briefly. You have some swim lanes here that will explain what kind of roles are involved on this level, and also the practices, the techniques they use on a team level to enable team flow. And then if you put team of teams, then you have art, agile release train, and they also have some ceremonies and some techniques they use to go about getting team of teams to flow. And if you look at the next one, if you work with really large systems, such as Porsche introduced SAFe during the pandemic, really big systems, then they probably are on solution train. Then they will have train or several trains that will create solution trains. And on top of that, you have the portfolio, where you actually have the ingest of new work that can also derive from business decisions, strategy, and so forth. But new work can also, of course, derive from the train, from the ongoing work. This is one way to manage, how should I say, the PMO role in a lean fashion. This is where you really get the lean experience with the full business agility, to also get the governance side and also the budgets into this. So it's a lot. People have different opinions about SAFe and how that works, and it's too complex, it's too many ceremonies and so forth. Gartner at least claims that if you have complex initiatives and you have multiple teams, SAFe is a good place to look. If you really need to scale and you need to coordinate and you need teams to gravitate towards common goals, business goals, and be able to actually maneuver in that space, SAFe could be a good candidate to look at. And it's not it's a framework that you can grow or you can live with for a long time. And of course, as any other method or framework, it needs to be tailored. So you probably won't use everything that is in the big picture, but it's a place to start and to get inspired. That's basically what I had. Mm. Is this your turn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to get some more drinks before I start, or are you fine? So I've started in Norwegian, but I'll talk in English, and the slides are in English soon as well. But just shortly about me, working as an agile coach, enterprise agile coach for several years now, and an IT architect. So my background is technical. Over 20 years of experience, helping large, complex organizations. That's why I've been focusing a lot around the Scaled Agile Framework. I started off, got introduced to Agile in 2003, I think, working for Telenor Mobil, where we were using XP and Scrum. And since then, I've been an Agile advocate, frustrating my IBM program managers and project leaders and with growing sort of level of leadership, I've also been able to influence a lot of it. I got introduced to the SAFE framework in 2016, so not that early because it started in 2011, but I recognized a lot of the patterns and everything. I've been using them for several years, so it made sense, and also I saw how easily you could start saying you're using SAFE and actually be working a lot in the old-fashioned way of top-down and long, sort of using a lot of the same. So the framework is there. I'm using it as a catalyst for getting a change, getting started, and you have to tailor it, and you have to adapt, and you have to learn, and it's all about the mindset and the culture part you have to build in there. So even though the last few years I'm focusing more on leadership coaching, that part, I still have a bit of my technical part, so I like to keep that in up to date as well. So, what is new in SAFE 6? This is a bit small on this screen, but it doesn't look too different at the first glance, but I've made some changes here, and we'll go into some of the specific ones. I'll just highlight that they've sort of separated the layers a bit more. They've moved some of these competency areas, the culture and learning has been moved down to the foundation, so it crosses all of them. I'll come back to some of them, some of the other ones, but there are a few changes. My sort of initial feeling is that these ones are making it better. It's more focus on the sort of flow part, more adaptability, more learning and sort of adjusting, finding the bottlenecks. The smaller ones, maybe the team can solve. The bit bigger ones, the agile release train or that can do, but the big bottlenecks is normally systemic and has to be solved by the leadership, which can't just mandate use SAFE and then show me next year how it's working. They have to actually do the work they have to do. So this is from Scaled Agile, the sort of main themes for the changes in 6.0. So strengthening the foundation for business agility, like Thomas was talking about. Focusing on clarifying responsibilities. I've seen that if you don't have clear roles, sort of, or at least the responsibilities, it slows down. And that is something that happens when you get into a new, so people not used to working in Agile, you get a new name, you're a product owner, you're a Scrum Master, but what does it actually mean? What is your responsibilities? How much, what can you actually do? So I think that's a good part, and that's something we need to work more on. Accelerating value flow, so they call it a flow-based framework or a system now. Enhancing the business agility across the business. We'll see that they're focusing more on other parts than IT now as well, bringing it more together. They've brought in the hype words, but actually digitalization or digital transformations, a lot of it has to do with getting control on your data, using new technology which enables you to work in faster ways, and AI, of course, how you start automating when you get control over your data and you can start automating stuff. So they've brought that into the framework as well as parts of it. And of course, delivering on the outcomes. So they're focused more on using OKRs and how to measure KPIs and that part. So this one, Thomas took us through around the business agility, how the different parts, the competencies are used in the flow. They've made some changes here to the foundation, as I said. They used to have the House of Lean. That one has been taken away, so they have the Lean Thinking Principles instead. 5 principles. The values, the SAFE Manifest is the same, of course, and they've changed the key values, so the value part here. So instead of having program execution and built-in quality, they now have the relentless improvement and respect for people. And You will see that program is a word they've stopped using more or less totally through the whole framework, and that's a good part as well, I think. So we'll see more of that. And we'll look a bit more at the lean thinking part of it. A lot of the sort of house of lean stuff is implicit and into more of the other underlying stuff. So they're sort of focused more on the lean thinking principles. And as I said, they brought the continuous learning into the foundation. They've changed one of the what's the word for principles. So instead of, I can't remember the old one now, but make value flow without interruptions is the new one. So the flow-based system, measuring, finding bottlenecks and removing them is a key part now. They made some changes to the implementation. I won't go into the details, but they've understood that not everyone starts from waterfall projects any longer. They have sort of seen that there is some adjustments and best practices that have changed a bit. So that's something they've done. And the SAFE program consultant, which is SPC, which is the one who can do the training part as well, is now called the SAFE practice consultant because they've removed the program word. And they've created these responsibility wheels for a lot of the roles, which is part of making it clearer. So there's one for the SPC as well. So an SPC's role is coaching flow, help leading the change, help implementing SAFE, accelerating business agility, and embodying the lean agile mindset. That's the responsibility of the SAFE practice consultant. I touched on this. So empowering the teams, clarifying responsibilities. They have these responsibility wheels, and then they have descriptions of what you normally would be doing and some techniques you can do in the different areas. You have the agile team responsibility. I like that concept that you actually give the team a responsibility and not just the single roles. And you have the art responsibility, so that's the team of teams as well. Product owner, scrum master, there are more than these ones. So they have them for more or less all the roles. Just one example is the Scrum Master, which they also now call the team coach, because they see that not all the teams necessarily use Scrum as their method. So it leans better in if you're using Kanban or maybe other flavors of an agile way of working. But the responsibility for this person is, of course, how to help the team become high performing, improving the flow, removing bottlenecks, obstacles, supporting them in how they do their iteration, facilitating in planning, and improving the art performance. So you're actually contributing into the larger team of teams. This one Thomas took us through as well, accelerating value, the 8 principles. For the ones who have used or know SAFE from before, you will recognize some of the images. So the planning in the PI planning, where you have the program board here, which is probably not called a program board any longer. Addressing bottlenecks, visualizing limit and limiting work. The queue, batch size. So if you've done leading SAFE, I guess you've done the flipping coins and understood sort of that smaller pieces go quicker through the system. Optimizing time in zone. So this is advice around how maybe to start optimizing your meetings, how you can have more focused time on actually doing the work and not sort of being pulled around everywhere. Focusing on the WIP limit so you can actually get work done. And this one I specifically like because it's very relevant where I'm working, is how can you remove old legacy rules and practices? Because keeping the old stuff there in how you're measuring, how you're doing stuff will tear your efforts in trying to get more lean apart. So this is again very often leadership quite high up which has to do these or mandate these changes. Around Accelerating value, they have now a value stream management article as well, which is based around the lean thinking, the principles, and they've put in sort of the responsibility of the different value streams. So you have the art, and you have a solution train, which is a set of arts working together. They call this the tactical value stream management. And then you have your business owners, which are the ones who can know the business and more sort of help with that part, which they call the strategic value stream management. So within precisely specify value by product, specify products and output, they specify the value and the outcomes. Organize around, so identifying the value streams. So they would organize around value. The business owners would define what the value stream is. Who needs to work together to deliver the value? We would here on this side actually organize in that way and help optimize it. So that's, I find that article quite good, and it's a lot to sort of focus on. It's not the easy part. This one is something they've added more and more of as well. They started in 5.0 with the business agility. Now they've started talking about, or they have articles around business-enabled arts. We'll come into shortly each of these ones. A agile business train, agile executive team. This suddenly brought me back to a different framework called Scrum at Scale, where you have an EAT, executive action team, which is the scaling of Scrum teams. So this is an executive Scrum team focusing on removing impediments and laying the environment for everything else to work. Agile business function, and then you've got the combined portfolio where you have the business value stream and the development value stream. So in SAFe they distinguish between these value streams, but now they also show that earlier SAFe was focusing mainly only on the development value streams, but they used the business value stream to sort of say which systems or parts they had, which they then had to organize the development value streams around. They're now talking more about the business value streams as well, and how these also can be organized in these structures. So the business-enabled art is where they're focusing on that this team of teams, they need more of the business people on it. It's not enough just to have the IT people teams sort of organized and together, but actually have a lot of the business represents in on the same team of teams. So research, marketing, business process, contract negotiation maybe, technical support, legal, audit needs to be part of this. Because a lot of the time you say, okay, the IT is organizing and using SAFe, but they still have to talk with all these other functions, and you have the hands-offs and bottlenecks, and you don't have the environment. So this is one way of trying to get that better. Some operational value streams might also be organized as team of teams, and the development value streams would be maybe a part of this. So you see which development value streams and which operational sort of, and you would use some of the techniques from PI planning, high-level planning, coordinating, synchronizing between the business side and the IT side, more or less. And of course, if you have these business trains and the development value, you might have a combined portfolio as well. So actually the operational initiatives is not planned separately from your development part of building the systems to support that. So some of it they're focusing on here is that in either case, when you're sort of funding or building, if you build this new IT system and you don't fund the business to actually train and use it or change to be able to use it, you won't get the value. So you need to fund both sides of the equation, not just building the IT system, but actually fund the transformation of the business operational value stream to use the new system as well. And another way of actually helping some of these problems, maybe instead of having a business or a combined train, is that you at least start focusing on your business functions and maybe organize them a bit more like agile teams and have lean agile methods or ways so they can work better towards the system or towards the agile trains, and they can then help sort of provide them as shared services. So shared services was on the, or is on the big picture, but now they've sort of put in a bit more articles explaining how this can be done and given some examples and sort of practices which has been done other parts. The Agile executive team, as I said, the top leaders maybe high up that can actually make the changes needed to the system to help remove the impediments that are systemic and that the single team or a train aren't able to do on their own. Yeah, we won't go into this one, but the technologies that are sort of enabling the faster moving and the more automated stuff we're doing with digitalization. The last one is on the measurement and the outcomes. I talked about this on the last meetup as well, where we sort of see that they're not just using OKRs as a format for strategic themes, but actually as a format for specifying the results of an epic as objectives and measurements for the value stream, development value stream, and also for your transformation. So there are OKRs isn't just one possibility, they're a pattern or a way of doing stuff that can be used in several of them. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it can be a good approach of measuring the sort of the objectives and seeing the results. Some other smaller changes in the backlogs and the Kanban boards. Instead of having a backlog column, they're calling it ready, to not confuse backlog with the backlog. So instead of having getting it into the backlog and then being able on PI planning to bring it on, it's in a ready column and then you can bring it on to the implementation of the next phase. And then the last slide I'll present is a lot of the terminologies they've changed. When we talked about the PI planning, that was a program increment planning. Now it's a plan interval planning, planning interval. So they've removed the word program from all of the sort of places. So the program backlog is now called the art backlog. Art planning board, art epic instead of a program epic. So it's more linked to the level, and they've removed the program as a synonym or the same as the agile release train. That was confusing, especially when you were talking with people who were used to having projects and programs of projects. They were thinking, oh, this is a program of projects, but it's not. They were using the word program as an organizational sort of way of that confusion. I've seen and struggled with that a lot. I hope that will clarify that it's not the old project program, just put in a new way. This is something else. It's the organizational. Yeah. Were there any other specific? Yeah, they've sort of, instead of having Scrum XP, they now call it Safe Scrum. It's because they have a few distinct parts of the Scrum, which is that you actually have to focus on that you're part of a larger system. You have some art things going into there. Scrum of Scrums, they call it the Coach Sync to make it a bit more generic. Instead of a daily stand-up, they now have a team sync, so they use this sync on several layers to synchronize. Not sure what I think about all of them, but I think at least sort of removing the program has been good. I heard Dean Leffingwell talking about that on a podcast 1.5 years ago. He really regretted he had put that word in there, but it took a long while before he managed to sort of pull it out. So it is quite a big change actually, version 6, when it comes to terminology and the words they're using. Yep, thank you. Shall we have a 5-minute break and get some drinks and one question?
In SAFe 5, they introduced team topologies. Did they take that any further in SAFe 6?
It is highly used, yeah, and they reference it a lot, and they do sort of talk about, yeah, they're using the topology on both the trains, the team of teams, and also on the team level. So they do talk about enabling teams, enabling trains, platforms, and those parts, yeah. 5-minute break, get some drinks and maybe some pizza. So to the ones on the WebEx, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, dear. Your turn.
And then I will take you through 6-7 years, maybe a 6-7 years journey we did in DNB. So it's
You need to speak a bit louder, I think, Didier.
yeah, well, I am trying to find how I.
Sorry.
Yeah, I find.
Hi, good.
So first, who I am. So I have been working Agile my whole career. It's one of the things I have. I am engineer, so I don't code anymore. But I do it home, but I am not a professional. It's not good enough quality, but I cannot stop. I've been working in several countries. I spent several years in Japan, and then after that I said I must master Lean. So I became a black belt, a Lean Six Sigma black belt, because it's a lot of things are coming from the place I spent several years. I've been working in both startups, so I started several companies, and corporate. It's a good, nice, both of them. Startup make use that you can do a lot with not so much money, and it's something I try to take it into corporate world, to say you don't need a lot of people, you don't need a lot of money to do things. And I built several teams, so it's also what the journey we speak about is how I built the whole digital teams that today run wealth management and IT. So I am coming from IT side, so it's technical, very happy in technology. So what happened? It's people who don't know, you will get a lot of words on investment in finance, a lot of acronyms. So it was in 2016, the Norwegian government made the decision to disrupt the investment in Norway. So it was quite funny. The government made the decision to say people must use the money in a different way. And they started with what is in Norwegian called aksjesparekonto. It's AISA in English. And then, when they just finished with that, they say, well, we will do it with pension. They started with IPS, which is investment pension saving, which is one of the products. The two products are more tax optimization. We are not allowed to speak about it, but both aksjesparekonto and IPS are tax optimization. And then the last things, as I guess everybody of you, maybe not you are working for the government, but the rest are touched because it's again pension konto. It's how people can take control of their own pension and then work and invest it. So it is a journey. So I joined DNB 2015, was a data center move. Then aksjesparekonto came, and I've been in charge of running the whole project. So it was a project, and it was a huge project, having people from markets, how we do with stocks, with asset management, how we do with funds, bank, you need cash. People was distributing channels, because at this time was one layer. So it was how I coordinate 4 divisions with 4 business units back and make it happen. I made it, but at the end I was, okay, is it a smarter way? Do I need to reinvent the wheel next time? And next time it was already coming, it was IPS. So it was quite funny. So when IPS came, I spent some time, it's the learning part you have in SAFe, so you have to reflect. So at the end of Access Paracontrol, I started to reflect how can we better. Went through several frameworks. Less was not fully mature. We were Spotify model. It was very few things in 2017 written about what they did. It was not an alternative I could have seen. And then SAFe was there. It was 4. Not was the best version, but it was good enough to say how I can coordinate a huge mastodon as DNB is, how I can do the coordination. So I pick up IPS, was a section manager, I was in charge, so I could pick up it, starting to implement it. Nobody asked me, I didn't ask the permission for my boss, I did it by myself. So it was the first trend. It was one of the good things of DNB and one of the things I will speak about. People has been empowered, so people, if you wanted, you could. So it's only to want to do things. Do it, went to the SPC, became SPC, started doing the IPS, the saving product. It was small, 20 people, train, 3 teams, making it simple. It was one business unit, and it was on purpose this time only one business unit, wealth management. We did it. We did the same. It went smoothly. The same with Access Paragon 2, IPS, and we will see again Pensions Con 2. 3 was quite funny. The law was done, but in Norway, the difference between voting, passing a law, and then application of the law, it's directives. And to do write it, the people are spending the whole year after you got the law to write how you will apply the law. And basically, the government was telling us how to implement the whole thing while we were coding. So it was quite tough in this way that everything could change. We didn't know. We have to guess what could look like the final product. So we were coding, they were having new directives, or we have to redo, or we have to change. So we needed really to be agile. And we couldn't wait because it was a deadline. You don't reach the deadline, you are out of market. So you will not one of the first competitor will take the market for you. So it was quite interactive. 2018, we managed Ask, managed IPS. Spara App is there. Spara App is quite funny. It was something. It's coming from Black Belt. We take the whole private banking value streams analysis, and Spara App is one of the result of the value chain analysis, which was split into 2 parts. One is the investment, which is what we use for investment for private banking. We don't see too much. It's more portfolio management, financial portfolio management. The other is Spara, which has been for the private, for everybody. It was quite interesting, and it's design thinking. It's one of the good products. One of the first products DNB started doing really design thinking. Have 5 apps, 5 prototypes at the end of the first design thinking. 1 week, reach, and it was quite funny to have it. So we have 50 people. Started to be more than one trend. It started to be more complex, different products, and then you started to have the challenge of people. How to have people with you? How to have the business with you? Because what I try to avoid is to have an IT initiatives running it. So it has been my focus has been a lot of how I can coach business, how I can have business with me, to tell you have the key of the cars. You have to drive the car. It's not me. It's you are, and I am here to help you. So it's been a lot of things, and And then we speak about one DNB. It's not one DNB. It's several DNB. You have a culture. The business unit has different cultures, different maturity of agile. Some of them are almost waterfall. When you say, well, we are using Jira, we are Scrum. No, it's not because you use Jira, you have agile. People use Jira, but they are waterfall. So it was also the how to embrace all of the different culture, to adapt the different maturity, and to find the correct level. Additional of that, what I said, it's wealth management digitalization has been a journey itself. It's how to go cloud, how to use big data, how to use AI. It was quite funny. All of the buzzwords you introduced at the end was, well, I needed to use it and to roll out. So it was quite interesting to do it. Own pension account, which is the last of the three products. It was funny. I changed the role. I was more strategy, SPC or coaching. I went to Bergen, where DNB Life is, and when I arrived, said, no, you will not work according to you. We are working our way. No way. But it was in January. March, Norway shut down. So, and then, well, they were how to develop APK, which was supposed to be delivered at the end of 2020, when everybody sit down home. So, well, I got, could you please help us? So I introduced SAFE, which is a new value chain, which was pension. And then it was 70 people at the top, 70 places, because everybody was sitting home. And then I said, well, how to run a train? And it was up to 2020, SAFE didn't have any material. It was not. It was prohibited to train people online. It was physical meetings. We don't have now. We have, when you train, you have some documentation how to train online. So you have a lot of training material for the trainers to help you to make it. At this time, it was not there, so it was again a challenge. Bergen was not so well in agility. They were waterfall, extremely waterfall. They wanted to say we plan, we write specifications, and then we do it, but they didn't have time to do it. And we were sitting here. So during this period, I became a trainer. Firstly, I couldn't move from Norway. I was sitting home, so all my holidays was spent, in fact, in taking a certification in SAFE, because it was a rainy year. It was cold during summer. No way, it was not possible to swim. And I don't swim when the water 20 degrees. I am from southern France. So basically, I spent my 4 weeks holidays. I work, I think, 60 hours a week. I was 60 hours a week during 4 weeks. So yeah, and then at the end I was able to take all of the roles, to understand well them. And what is good in teaching is you must master what you do. This is the reason I went to the teacher roles, and I still teach, and I did it to help the whole train to move and to accomplish it. The last sentence is in December. We were supposed to go live 1st of January. Finance Norge came and said, well, you should use the best practices in investment, because it's only to explain how finance works. Pension is not the same law than investment. Investment is regulated, what is called MiFID. And MiFID is strong regulations. Pension is less regulation. And Finance Norge say, well, if we give the common people the opportunity to control their own pension, we cannot let them to gamble. So they started to say, well, you should follow the practice of MiFID II. So I guess it will be a change in 1 or 2 years. The pension may be under the MiFID II, which is how you control the money. It is one of the things the current agile practice in investment value chain at DNB was I was responsible for one value chain. It was several trains. It's what made it possible. I was sitting, I call me the SPAR CTO. I was sitting with full responsibility. And then I could have the opportunity to do it. And the will to do it. It was funny to transform DNB to a very traditional waterfall outsourced. So everything was outsourced. We should give all of the keys to the Indian, and Indian are good, but a lot of them work waterfall. So if we take to 2023 today, so when I wrote it, I went back to my ex-colleagues and say, what is left? So they don't use any safe word, but they still synchronize 200 people through a PI planning. They still have road mapping to tell what will come in the 6 to 1 year. So a lot of things I have been introduced, I've been coaching the business is still there. The safe, what is negatively safe, is a bad connotation. It's because it's safe is a huge framework, and huge framework require mastering the framework when you install it, implement it. If you don't do, you will be slave of your framework and you will fail. I saw it with ITIL. People taking ITIL, at the end of ITIL, you have one role, one position. It means it's crazy. You have so many people, you don't know how to coordinate them, and everything goes slow. It's the same with SAFE. You have to go to take where I stand today, what kind of challenge I have, and it's not about a company. It's more now and then it's about a business unit, and then to start to tailor it. To pick up what makes sense, to maybe introduce the words that you need to introduce, or to do a safe practice without using safe word, because you will have people say, no, safe, it doesn't work, I don't want it. Some people say that one of the problems of safe is safe create dependencies. Well, I say, no, safe highlights dependencies, but it's not there to create the dependencies. And this is one of the challenge we have. Today, I think the teams who work Kanban was one of the reasons I was very happy if the word Kanban was, now it's a coach, it's not anymore a Scrum Master, came 3 years ago, because when it was a reorganization, DNB reorganized every 2 years. Now they reorganize and they have a pure value chain around investment now. But the team say, no, we work with Kanban, we cannot work safe. Say, well, at the team level, we don't speak, we let the freedom of the team. It's an empowerment. They work as they want to work. If they want to work XP, they can work XP. They want to work Scrum, they work Scrum. The majority of team work Scrum-Ban, so we let. But it was one of the things. This I continue. It was a digitalization, what it is today. Disruption, yeah, I took it to introduce what SAFE said. You use SAFE to digitalize, and this is what I have been using it. I took a part of my legacy systems out of to cloud, and so it was not only a shift and lift, it was transformed. It was also how you use more data analytics, how you transform really, and SAFE doesn't tell you it. Now even they are introducing the words in the framework. Data, SAFE will never tell you what you do with data. You have to do it. Then, but it's also the working with people, and it's most important. And it's one of the things one tend to forget. You do it with people, and people is the key to success. So it's and how you do it without shocking them. So you have the create higher resilient teams. And when I did it, it was nice because in 2020 I changed role. I went from a section to the strategical role on the 1st of March. 10 days after, Norway shut down. I didn't need to go back to my role. My teams they run. They knew what to do. They didn't need me to instruct them to how to work. They worked. Everything was smooth. They worked and they knew how to do it. They knew how to provide all data the government wanted to have to check that the bank was sustainable. But it was quite nice to have built such independent teams. So, but it has been a lot of work to do it. So you have to pick up the correct people. Don't take a lot of people. And don't take. We were working with a lot with TCS. I was one of the few people hiring in TCS. I've been expecting some people 3 to 6 months, some consultants, because I was hiring consultants. When I took them on board, it was the same process as to hire an employee. Exactly. It's I don't care people where they are sit. I don't care the nationality. I don't care the age. I don't care the sex. I want only talents. And to do it, it's the same process to do it. You select, you do. Skill up, reskill. A lot of people are good. They have been too long in the comfort zone. So you need to shake people. Say, hey, wake up. The world is moving. You should move with it. So it's a part of how you do it. One of the challenges when we moved SAFE, a part of my IT teams was against. They were against cloud. Say no, we know how to do traditionally. We know how to plan traditionally. Don't change things. So it was quite funny to work against my team. So it was easier to convince business than to convince certain of my teammates. I did it, and it was bringing new people, bringing new skills, telling, okay, I will accompany you to training. So I show also. I have plenty of certifications on cloud because I felt that I needed to show the path. I needed to show that if I don't do that, how I can ask my guys to do it, where they are supposed to be operational, I am not. This empower people. When you give power, you give the keys of the houses. I will, if it's burning, call me, but if it's no problem, I don't want to come, you manage the house. And then it was how to synchronize. So it was the way of digitalization. So the key factors, when I see clear value streams, it was easy. I knew what it was. It was the sense of urgency did that DNB understood that they didn't have choice. They needed to work differently. So it was the willingness to adapt something new was there. It's I have experience with building teams. I built platforms in Japan, solutions between Japan and Korea. I did it several times. So you need people having experience. What is agile? What is a team? So you don't start from scratch. If you don't have experience, don't try it by yourself. You will fail. So it was one of the things also. Business and IT, if they don't work together, you will not make it. So business at the end, if you are successful as an IT, they will say, oh, IT try to steal the business, so they try to run for us, and you fail, they say, hey, what I said, they don't understand the business, it's normal. And then the adaptation of the framework is really important to adapt. The framework is one of the things if you go and when you learn about lean and lean, people goes to Toyota and to see how they implement it. And they say, if you go today and see how they do, come back 1 year after, it will be different. It's a snapshot. And SAFE is exactly the same. You arrive, you will take a snapshot. You come later, it will be different. Why? Because people are more mature. You don't have focus. You have focus in what is painful. You have focus in one something. So you hopefully in 1 year your team evolve, people evolve. So you have to have the focus will shift. and so what you will perceive will be different. And then it's a leadership mindset and degrees of involvement. I say it's not something you do it aside. It's not something you believe will be done in 40 hours a week. We require a lot of push. But it's at the end, it's a wonderful journey. So it's the conclusion. It's the disruption gave me the opportunity, and it was a collaboration across the multiple business units. Today, the last reorganization of DNB did that now it's one organization. So it's markets, asset management are markets for when you buy, if you're a customer of DNB. If you buy stocks, you will, it's the same unit that if you buy funds. It was two different units. The alignment I did through SAFE, and it was, I had a director coming from my PI planning at the end. So I did all of the top coming. And they came. You build a team, but you have a team. It's not something you build. It requires also energy to keep it, and it's through the coaching. And then it's the flexibility and to adapt. I think it's one company is often no one culture. When you speak about corporate and SAFE is done for corporate, you will find several subculture, and then you will have to adapt. If you are not able to adapt, so firstly you are not agile, you are not flexible, so you shouldn't do the job. But it's really to be one of the things. So it is, after I have some questions. I think I finished the journey I did in DNB, not I did, with several others. And if you have questions about the journey, I have some questions.
One question, because I assume that wealth couldn't operate completely independently, right? So you had some dependencies to core banking systems and other banking systems. What was the experience when it comes to your cadence compared to core banking systems cadence and your dependencies to them?
Yeah, it's core banking are mainframe. Mainframe is a release every 3 months. You synchronize. So I say, oh, this PI. So they were invited. I invited also providers to my PI. So I invited, say, you have to understand what you are doing. You have to understand what I expect from you. So I expected a capability, and say, this capability, you have to commit. And if you commit, either it will be a release of Q1 or you release Q2. And then, if you say, it doesn't fit Q1, I will go and we'll try to change the priority. It will be the management job to try to shuffle the priority of the main release. If it's not, it means the trend must adapt. So you say, okay, and it was the same in DNB Life, how the traditional change of the system was done quarterly. Okay, before Q2, I don't do it, so I will not try to, I will mock the API, but I cannot complete it. So it's not a reason to put a lot of pressure to develop API you cannot test. So it was, okay, change the priorities, try to work much smarter, and it came, you try to find the value to get experience. So if you cannot test, your train will work waterfall, so you postpone it, things up to the readiness of the other. But you must adapt, because core banking is core banking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You were saying that you had some pushback from the engineers that wanted to do things differently, and that you were able to convince them to try to implement SAFE. What are the initial steps to maybe motivate a hesitant development team to do the SAFE rituals?
It was after Access Paracon 2, there were some people was quite burned, say you are crazy, you are again running. So it was how to do it and how to prove that the reason to embrace SAFE was to not have the emergency of doing things. So we try to structure more what we did. So it was to explain the structure. People was still, some at the end I was the boss, I took make the decision, I make the decision, some people was not happy, they have to live with that. But the majority understood. I took some people, I fetched people expert in cloud, they joined the team, they were able to coach, so I provided the freedom of coaching, the freedom of learning. So it was something I did to tell that so what we do is not fully unknown. We are mitigations to the unknown, at least for the technology. And then I mitigate the technology. So the rest of the business was not possible to mitigate. But at the end, I made the decision. Some people was at the end say, I don't like you because you don't listen to us. And I say, yeah, I listen to you, but I made my opinion based on what I heard and what is the strategy. These other questions?
What's impressions about the changes that were made to SAFe then? Has anyone sort of looked into any of them, or was this the first time you heard about them?
I have a question.
Yep.
But I just remembered. So you started with an art that was 2 teams.
It was 3 teams, yeah.
Yeah, 3 teams and 20 people or something. So in terms of SAFe, that's not really, I mean, so I just wondered how did that work out? Because that's interesting with such a small...
Firstly, I hate big teams. Big teams require a lot of overhead to manage. Scrum teams is supposed to be between, according to SAFe, is 7 plus minus 2. And plus Scrum Master and Product Owner. So you can go from 5 to 11. But if you want a team autonomous, you don't need to go to the max of the size. You have 5, 6 people, you say it is one team. Other team was more UX, working with business. Is the reason that the change having the business, which came more in the 5 when they have customer centricity, design thinking. It was more the teams. I had 3 guys, so business product owner, and I allocated 2 UX working with prototype. It was one team. They were independent, they could work the way they wanted, and the other was development. And you need to synchronize. So, and it was a 3 team to synchronize, but it was also the rest of the corporate. So when you think about the PI, it's not only to synchronize 3 teams when you work in the corporate world, it's to synchronize the teams inside the big corporation, plus maybe external things. So, and I use SAFe, and the PI is more to the tools to coordinate to all external, plus internal. Internal, you try to break it through the PI planning, because you try to make all of the teams as autonomous as possible. You don't manage, so you still have dependencies. But for the external, you must highlight, you must track them. So it's worse. The PI, even you have 15 people, you will, or maybe 10, it will be worse because you have a lot of things to follow. It's easier when you have one team because then you go back to what is a traditional project management.
And to that point, I think some of the mistakes I've sort of seen, and when starting with SAFe as well, is that having attended leading SAFe for teams and you do the PI planning simulation, you have the idea that you have to fill out all the iterations, breaking it down into tasks and doing it very detailed, so you're actually doing quite a large plan. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes if you try to implement SAFe that way. You need to use the PI plannings, as Didier said, it's to coordinate with the world around you. It's coordinating the teams at a high level, but not on all the details. Maybe the first iteration, maybe halfway through the second one, but at least I can maybe count 2 or 3 teams that could do it properly and follow that. Most of the teams got frustrated when they got to iteration 2 because then their plan didn't look like what they planned on the PI plan. And there's a reason why you do have the iteration planning and the backlog part there. It's not that you should do all of that So that's one of the mistakes. Use the PI planning, which they now call a planning interval. It's a high-level plan. It's for synchronizing, and even if there's fewer teams, you normally have dependencies with others, so bring them there, get those sort of sorted out, agree on the time slot where you can do this work together. That makes sense. That's my, at least, learning from implementing SAFe a few times.
But it also will feel a bit overwhelming to do all the rituals or all the ceremonies being, 20 people.
Yeah, that
Of course,
was
but
kind
then,
of what
but
I
then
was
you have to
thinking.
emphasize, as Didier says, on why we're doing this. This is kind of like a clutch between the efforts and the world around you, being management and being IT or what have you.
And it will not take 2 days, and so you shrink into 1 day because to people you don't see architecture principles. If you don't change them, you can't drop it. The business is important to speak about the business outcomes. What we want to achieve is most important. If you have I use it to introduce test automation. But when the pipeline are there, when everything is there, you can remove a lot of things. And when you are big, you need 2 days. But if you are not big, you don't need 2 days. Make it simple.
I understand that it was the market disruption that gave the opportunity to bring 3 new products to the market, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the planning interval, there are certain amount of iterations, and then you're focusing on innovation and planning in the last interval. What's your experience around that when you're doing completely innovation all the time?
I will the next topic of next it will be the topic of the next meetup, which is innovation at scale. I will do it with my DND mine. So we will run it. We will take it more. What I created it was we were doing always so. And SAFe, when you have continuous exploration, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and release on demand. When you have the 4, when you see them, they say the 4 happen at the same time. It's not something you do. What they say at the end, you have education, you have some training. So you use the IP, the last iteration, to do it. But you don't do it. It's the same. Problem solving, you don't wait if you say we had also often 10 weeks, you don't wait 10 weeks to try to see what kind of problem you have. So it's problem solving is a mindset, it's one way you are and one way to act. So you see the whole thing. Here you have the say continuous exploration, which is where you design thinking, is this part. Integration is where you do the job. Here you have the job is the train, it works, the PI, and then deployment is should be automated plus some manual things. So it's done, and I have created some teams which were working always with business, with prototyping. You cannot wait. Business need to do. You need to go to the customers. You need to say, hey, what do you think about it? You cannot wait every 10 weeks to say, well, I thought 10 weeks. What do you think? Because the cycle is shorter. And even we plan a PI, I could change the PI within 1 iteration. So if suddenly something happened, people could replan. So I was not fully no. We planned the PI, come back in your iteration 2, you still have 4 iteration. Wait, no, people could adjust because the world is changing so fast. You cannot wait. So SAFe say you must dedicate some time, and the minimum time is IP. It's the minimum time you can have for education, for exploration. If you do hackathon we create, you need a lot of preparation. So it's the reason you say you create a hackathon every 10 weeks. It makes sense because if you want a good hackathon opening your company to several people coming to help you, it's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of work also to to check that all teams can work, have the equipment they need. So you cannot do it often. But the rest,
And I've also sort of, to your point as well, don't wait for that specific sort of iteration to that part, but maybe training, so other parts of it, and it's normally good to have the flexibility to actually teach them not to do that detailed planning that week or those couple of weeks. Leave it open and then do the planning when you get there. And actually what we've seen is probably the most valuable, or a lot of the valuable work was solved during that period that they hadn't planned in advance.
Sure, but it's also a hard sell to management that we aren't going to do stuff in this, in this time slot.
But the sell should be we're not doing anything. We'll do the stuff that's important to do at the time when we get there. So,
but often it's more planification than to sell to the, you say to the management after you do what you want, because you are supposed to be autonomous.
Right.
What you're saying is actually in the exam, so we know.
is it?
One of the normal mistakes that the people are doing is too detailed in the PM.
Right.
A question regarding this with 20, only 20 people. I mean, I would say that if you were expecting to be only 20 people, then perhaps not safe and PI planning is the way to go. But I'm guessing that you were expecting to grow, and since you, I mean, perhaps it's a good time to start with safe when you actually are a little bit small, to learn a lot, and when people are coming on, you have already learned a little bit, and then expanding. You use safe because of complexity.
It is a question of failure. We did some mistakes. When you have only 20, the mistake is not so expensive, isn't it?
Exactly.
When you have 100 people or 200 people, mistakes is 10 times. So the learning part, it's something we forget. Of course, when I present everything went fine, and everything when we were speaking about one of the coach, Ida, I spoke. You say what went? I say one of my PI I delegated to a professional coach inside DNB. I say she will deliver a wonderful PI. It took 1 week because the readiness of the PI was not there. Should have been postponed. People no, we don't need to postpone. And then you started to have when the business started to present, started to analyze all of the features. People was not ready. They I don't know. So you started to do the whole job. So we should have postponed it 1 week. But again, it's a big event. You have a lot of people. You block time of the executive also to come and say, no, we cannot postpone. So you was the worst PI I never had, and I was so happy because I could delegate it. Go back to register an engineer role, and I did it. But
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, we've all been there.
So it's this kind of things. So it's I like, and you see the big teams today. If you when you work with very skilled teams, you don't need so many people. I still feel that people want to have a lot of them. Yes, you need for some products. You can go to 50. For 50, start to be huge. You can do a lot today with 50, with a lot of all automation we got, all the things, all the tools we got to support development. You do a lot. So it's the reason it's when I see people dreaming of having big teams, they say, no, you should work in the DNB, maybe you are big boss with big teams. Yes.
One of the issues I feel when you may have big teams and you want to split them is what are the new mandates for the two teams? Can they have the same mandate? How do you organize? What do you organize the new teams around when you split them?
It's depending. So some PI, when I was changing the teams reorganizing because we were moving so fast, and so today it was the first we needed to go to production. So I had a team I created at the end, a team focused to production readiness, and not only readiness but operational, how to take a new product into production, how to have a 24/7. So it's creating a lot of things. So you do it when you branch a team, try to take best in 2 teams. No, you don't take the best in the same team. You have to split. And the mandate, it's you get the features, so you get something to do.
So it's still on features.
It's still on features. Either you go back to what is the platform teams, and see if you cannot branch is your platform teams, because if when you split into platform teams, then who is responsible for what? So then you need to split your platform in 2. So you can take a security part, you can take other part or container part, but you cannot say, okay, I have one platform team for container, I will split my container team into 2, and then it will not work, because if you have 2 accountable teams, then nobody is accountable at the end. So you must have one team. And the idea when you have still the, if you think about platform, is to not try to split the teams, is to try to educate the people using the tools to do the job. So the platform team still should be a lean team, working ahead to see what are the new tools, but they are also to coach the other to take into use. Because if you create a big organization relying only in few teams, you are not DevOps, you will never make it. So, and you will not have the speed, because at the end people will still wait for your platform team.
And what you're talking about there is from team topologies, the enabling teams, which has to enable the other teams.
Yeah, and you have a servant, it's servant leadership applied to the team. When you see team topologies, typically a platform team is servant leadership. They went and they try to not do the job, they try to coach the other to do the job. But they try to automate to help the other, to make the other teams more efficient. So it's the same. You take a relationship between a Scrum Master and a platform team, is the same, but more on the platform.
Any other questions or thoughts?
I actually have a question from your slides.
Yeah.
You can go back to the one that's combined.
Which one?
Oh,
The combined portfolio one?
yeah, the combined portfolio and the business.
Oh yeah. So this
I'm
one.
trying to understand that.
So in this.
What is the business enabled art? What is these?
So a business enabled art means that you actually organize and dedicate people with maybe legal, technical support, maybe procurement, contract, skilled people onto your train who can actually help when the teams need to purchase something, if they need to find out, is this the rule we should implement, etc. So these are actually business people. So instead of just having a product owner that is a proxy having to talk with these other places, you actually bring these people into the train more. And of course, if you can't bring them in there, the other part of it is, can you start organizing some of your business teams to be a bit more lean and flexible and work and do sort of planning with their backlogs, so you can actually have different teams ask for support at different times, and these are then shared services. Because you don't have enough of them, so you can't have one person on each train, but you organize them so they are enabling the teams to get their work done.
One of the example I can give from you was Access Power Control, we had 2 lawyers with us the whole way. Banking is extremely regulated, so we had the lawyer say, okay, you take 2 lawyers. If you don't, they don't fit any agile team, they don't fit, so they find a name, which is a business, is how you take people. If you need to invest to buy software, you need to, as a corporate, you need to go to procurement, you need to go to assessment, you need to have the security, and so on. It's how you take this supporting, which is more supporting functions, and try to create in an agile organization. Is still is the way it is called, because they were there, they are still there.
Yeah.
They got a name.
And I'm not sure if you've sort of seen, but in SAFE 5 they called it the dual operating system. You had sort of the hierarchical structured organization, and then you have the network, which is sort of the flexible and more the entrepreneur part of it, and then they put SAFE as a tool for bridging the gap between sort of the structured organization and the more network, where these agile release trains are the organization networks. But it means that if the traditional side with marketing, HR, procurement, etc., still live in their structured bureaucratic sort of structure, it will limit and it won't give the flexibility. So they need, although we still need that hierarchical structure, we need it to work in a more lean and agile way, so they support the flexibility and the business agility that's there, that they're talking about.
So
And this is then a way of representing how that could look.
does that mean that they are dedicated to one train only?
Mainly.
I guess that would be hard, but it could be that maybe some of these are dedicated 50% of their time to this train, maybe. And if that doesn't work, maybe you could use this pattern and say that the procurement team, you have a point of contact maybe, but they will then have a backlog, and when there comes requirements, they will be flexible to support at a certain time. But they then need to be agile teams and maybe have a Kanban board and plan and get high priority work which comes from this team. So it's about how you then adapt. So they can't put it in the...
So that's maybe why they call it, if you go back to the other slide, if you take the team portfolio context, they're talking about enabler teams.
Yep.
So these are business enabler teams. Actually.
Yep, sure. Yep. That's the way to talk about it. So they should enable the teams.
Okay, so before these guys were probably somewhere in the pyramid, in the command and control pyramid.
Yeah.
And you have to go and find them and open some hatches and some doors and pull out a legal guy. And say,
But
"No,
here
you
you're
can't
actually,
But they are now dedicated to
yeah, or at least you have an agreement.
to the solution, or
Yeah. At least you have an agreement with that department that they are now part of this agile, the flexible network, entrepreneurial part of it, at the percentage.
But I think the other important part is the cadence part. One is that they're allocated, but the other is that they have a backlog. They're part of the planning. They're part of the cadence, because you need to have the whole organization to breathe and work in the same way. Because if you don't, if you find out 3 weeks in, oh, I need to knock on somebody's door, and then you need 6 weeks to be able to allocate somebody, then it takes a long time. If they're available and they're part of the planning, then you know that you will have them available when you need them.
And the
or at least you
place-
can plan with that.
Yeah, sure. And the place I'm working now, you have to ask for resources 1 year ahead. And that's very flexible. I need a procurement guy next year to do
You have to
something.
You have to think also, if you think SAFE is coming from a waterfall development, evolved. So it was focus of IT. It was focus, and we see it with development value stream and operational value stream. It's supposed to be one. How to can be DevOps when you have two value streams is another question. But then, suddenly IT is not anymore. We are making IT with business. We need other people, and it has been the way of addressing or organizing the other people. They have been there, but to get them, what you do in SAFE, you go to the stakeholders. You say, "I need it." You go up to the top to get them. So instead of working in emergency, trying now, oh, I need a lawyer, and you try to plan. You say, "Okay, I plan," and it was a dependency. As I said, with banking, the same release of banking. Well, I need a lawyer to that what they think. I need to buy a software. I need to have all of the work done to buy a software up at this date, and you are onboard them. But they are not dedicated 100% because we don't have 100% job for them.
But that planning you do in the roadmaps and you update it, and you at the PI planning you will see, oh, this next quarter we need to buy something. We will be focusing on this part. Can we have someone in? Can we have an agreement that this person can be available to the team?
But I guess you don't get away from the proxy.
No, no.
You're still going to chase out the Scrum Master to talk to these guys and maybe invite them in and have a chat.
Yeah.
But,
And I guess
at least now they are easier to find, I guess.
I guess facilitating and understanding sort of and collaborating and getting that part of it, because from the siloed structure you put in a lot of sort of limits for you can't talk with them, you have to go up the chain to ask for permission. So we're trying to get it to be more collaboration, more help, but of course you don't want everyone to ask the same person so nothing gets done either. So you want some sort of coordination and synchronization. And that's different levels of the planning.
Thank you, it explains my question. My other question is the one that...
I think it's the next slide with combined portfolio.
I don't understand the meaning of this.
So again, it comes back to green, and this is the blue. And then SAFE, as it comes from IT, it was this organization of the IT development of system, which was the key part of it. The green value streams, the business value streams, were just there to start identifying which value streams did we have, which systems do they use. But in this one, they're actually talking about if you need to do some work, an initiative on the operational value stream, not the IT system part of it, but maybe changing some procedures, training people, etc.
Okay.
Then you actually have an epic here, which focuses on we need to send a lot of people on training, or they need to reskill because we've put some automation in here. They won't be doing the same jobs any longer. We have this brand new system that we're building here, and if they don't change the work process up here, this system won't be used or doesn't give the value it should. That's
So
some
the
of the...
idea is that the operational part, in your case, it was that the customer center has to have their own, I wouldn't say Scrum team, but their own team or Agile team.
It could be one way of doing it.
Yeah.
It feels like if you have these two value streams has to kind of work in parallel, and it's a possibility then to use the same strategy for both of them in order to synchronize.
Yeah, and the funding part, and if you're the sort of the leader of it, you can then sort of make sure that you give money to make the changes in the business side as well, not just buy the IT system, or vice versa.
If you see the operational value stream in SAFE, is where people work, is where what is a production machine. Development value streams is what it was IT projects. You change one part of maybe the whole of the value chain. What they try to say that, and when you work DevOps and you work on operation on the operational value streams, and you're supposed to work development on the development value stream, is one step to say we work DevOps, we see it more than one value chain with two dimensions. One is the operations, the other is changes. And it is a way of getting more lean. The 6.0, it's a lot of lean has been embraced in this version. So I hope that maybe in the 6.1 or 7 it will be one value chain. It's not two.
And also in version 5, I think it was version 5.1, they actually split out value streams and had business value stream and development value stream. Because a lot of confusion has been when you're talking about value streams, SAFE is implicit talking about how you organize to build the IT systems which the company uses, maybe, the internal or external. But a lot of customers I've been talking to and implementing this, they've automatically thought when I'm talking value stream, it's the business value streams. So it's been a confusion in sort of why are we not doing that? Here they're actually bridging this a bit more together, and actually the way the world is now, IT and business is merging more together, and it makes sense that you have to focus on both of them.
I mean, obviously these two can be one team.
And sometimes the IT system is the business as well, but
keep in mind here, we're talking about portfolio. We're not talking about value streams, right? We're talking about portfolios.
So this is a portfolio that has both a business value stream and a development value stream in it. So it would be like, this might be a portfolio, they have a value stream here, and it's actually producing the different system that this business uses in this value to create its value. And the combined portfolio is where you have the green and the blue initiatives, strategic themes. So sometimes they would, yeah.
Well, I tend to say that they're complicating it too much here.
Yeah,
Because
could be.
what they said, if from a business point of view, an operational value stream is a combination of all the different systems you need to deliver customer value.
Yep.
And the customer value is the value stream of the business, because someone is entering your business, they want to buy something, and they get the value at the end of the operational value stream. And in order to be able to deliver that, you need certain, or a combination of many value streams, but also other business type of activities to be able to fulfill the customer's needs. So I think by doing this, I really don't like the explanation of this one.
I fully agree, but it's you have to always SAFe come from development, waterfall. When you do go Lean Six Sigma, when you do it, you say don't touch the system. IT system is the last thing you must change because it's the most expensive. So you go the analysis, and so you change a lot of value change can be changed only by reorganizing things. So here we say we are DevOps, we have a business and IT together. So business can make decisions, they can change the value chain, so they will change their operational value chain without having a development value chain. So in theory,
but then you still think projects.
exactly.
But you shouldn't still think project. You should think.
So this might be, yeah. I agree with you. This I need to dig a bit deeper into this new stuff here.
This kind of complicates the thing,
Sure.
from my point of view.
It was as complicated before because you had the two value streams.
Yeah, but that's much easier because they kind of separated the development of a system. But then in an take a loan in a bank, you need plenty of systems. Be able to have someone going into your bank and say, I'd like a mortgage, right? And then you onboard the customer and you give them the loan, and then they pay down the loan, and at the end they're happy because they own the house and they don't have a debt on the house, right? So that's the value stream in total. You need a lot of different systems to do that. And the same is if you have any other kind of value that a customer wants. Today, everything is, well, it's the difference between, a large legacy system and microservices. And everyone try to get to the microservices point of view, but again, that's an utopia. But if you are able to separate all of these, but then still manage them in the same kind of cadence and the same kind of value increment going forward, I think it's...
So I agree, but I see places this would make sense. I'm working at one place where it actually makes sense because it's different sort of department deciding on the parts as well.
Yeah.
So then it makes sense but otherwise I agree it might be confusing that you're separating them as well. But I would again then use it as a framework if this advice or this doesn't fit your context here and it seems to maybe, as you said, go the wrong way. Don't use it. Yeah. But I must admit I haven't dug properly into all the material here. So any other questions or thoughts around? Oops. Otherwise, I think we're 5 minutes past anyway. We can go over there and talk a bit more and have a bit more to drink and some pizzas if you want. Otherwise, thank you for meeting here today.